So we appreciate everyone for being here today, especially taking time out of your busy day. I'm Dr. Heath Jolliff. I'm a physician and an executive coach, and I want to welcome you to the August edition of the Doctor by Doctor Coaching Group's webinar. We're a group of healthcare doctors. We're trained as coaches, and now we coach other healthcare doctors and leaders in the clinical and industry settings. We're going to be coming to you on the fourth Wednesday of each month with a topic in healthcare coaching. Today, it's my pleasure to talk with Dr. Angela Owens. Angela is the founder of O2 Executive Coaching. She has her doctorate in healthcare systems leadership and is a former critical care nurse. She's certified as an executive coach through the Center for Executive Coaching and has her ACC from the International Coaching Federation. Angela focuses her coaching practice on holistic awareness, transitions, resilience, and relationships. And for our viewers who stay till the end of the webinar, Angela is going to give you a way to get a free consultation with her. With that, Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Heath. When we started talking about this last week and talking about, what are the needs of the people who are following us and our attendees, the coaching through crisis was just really a natural fit for this. Because when you look around at our world right now, there are so many people and so many situations that are going through a serious crisis. So I'm glad that we're able to really address this topic and drill down into it a bit. And so, we're going to talk about, what is a crisis? What is crisis management? And most importantly, in my mind here, what can your coach do for you in a crisis? So what is a crisis? Well, I think if you turn the news on today, you're going to see them all over the place. There were floods in Tennessee. We have this ongoing pandemic. And in healthcare, we were really almost seeing a light at the end of the tunnel with COVID when this Delta variant came back and really threw us for a loop. So, there's so many different definitions of what a crisis is. And we're seeing so many on a global level right now. But basically, the crisis is something that makes you feel out of control. You have this instability. It could be caused by a change. You may move, you may change jobs. Your kids could change schools. There's so many different things that can cause a crisis, loss. But really, a crisis is the ability to have a turning point. So you can turn that from something that's really dire and really negative, hopefully, to something that can be, I don't want to say positive, because that kind of diminishes the fact that this is a crisis, but something where we have a learning moment and we have opportunities for growth and further development. So when we talk about crisis management, you can Google this, right? You can definitely Google crisis management. And let me tell you, there's going to be so many different things that pop up, but there's no one size fits all for crisis management, because a crisis is a very individualized experience. So what I might define as a crisis, Heath, you might not see it in the same light. So it really depends on what the crisis is, what your definition is of the crisis. And so crisis management can't be one size fits all. There are definitely some common themes, and those are around, gathering of information, looking at resources. If you're a leader, what are your leadership responsibilities? Or if you're not a leader, what are you looking to your leadership to provide? Your personal adaptability in these types of situations. And then also, what is your support system? So before I go any further, I just really want to stop here for a second and revisit this that I believe Mark talked about last month. Coaching is not therapy. So while many coaches do have healthcare backgrounds or even backgrounds in psychology, when you're contracting with a coach, the coach is not there to provide those mental health services. But your coach does have resources to reach out to refer you to, if that is something that you do need. So coaching, coaching is not therapy. Sorry, my dog's in crisis. He's barking. I apologize if you guys can hear that. Everything's a crisis to a dachshund. So this brings us to really, what is the role of the coach in the crisis situation? Well, I like to say that, your coach doesn't have all the answers, but they have the questions to help you get the answers or get to an optimal solution for your situation. Because not everything is going to have a black and white answer. But your coach is your thought partner. They're there to listen to you. They're there to provide those deeper questions that can really dig into what you need to best manage this crisis. Now, it depends on the crisis too, right? So in healthcare, we're not going to pick up the phone and call our coach in the middle of a code. That's not how to use a coach in a crisis. They're not going to be any help there. But what we are going to do is maybe look at if something didn't go quite right in that situation. Let's talk to our coach about it. And, what can we do in the future to make that better? So the coach is there to listen to you, sorry, the dog, and provide a really safe space for you to express your concerns about what's going on in the crisis and to partner with you to help you develop a plan for the future. It's a very individualized process. Even as coaches, we don't have a set of specific questions. Oh, here's how you coach a client in crisis. There's nothing like that. Or if there is, it's, it can't possibly fit every person. So your coach knows you and will build an individualized plan to help you through this crisis. So with that, I'd like to take a few questions.
Great, Angela. I just wanted to tell our audience also that it's never too early to start typing questions. So if you have any questions for Angela, please type them into the chat and we'll get those over. And you can either do that with the everyone selection or to the host and the panelists, and we should be able to pick those up. I do have some questions of my own if we could. You kind of mentioned the term crisis, and I think until maybe COVID, a lot of people really didn't think a whole lot about that word. And I've always kind of thought, coach, a crisis has to be something really big like COVID or a big financial crisis. And then there's kind of crisis versus emergencies and emergent issues. Does it have to be something really big, or does it just depend on the person and the situation?
No, a crisis doesn't have to be something that is big. It doesn't have to be something that anyone else would consider as big. It's what you personally are going through. It could be you have changed roles in your job and it's not exactly what you expected it to be. You could have had a new boss hired, and that's also not exactly what you would have expected it to be. And so you personally are feeling in a state of crisis. So like we said, when we think of crisis, we automatically think it's got to be earth-shattering, right? But not necessarily, because a personal crisis can be a variety of different things. It can be a flat tire. Coach isn't going to help with that unless they live close to you. But you get my point. It doesn't have to be something that's life or death. But it does, it has to be something that impacts you and that is causing you to maybe question your judgment, question your plans, question your situation where you are right now, question your career choices, those types of things. And the coach can really help, dig into what exactly is at the root of that crisis, why it's a crisis, and what can you do for it.
I like that. So, during a crisis, there's so many things to focus on, especially in the short term. How can a coach help a leader even know where to begin?
Yeah, that's a great question because, when we're talking about COVID and we've watched, especially this evolution in healthcare from the very early days where we weren't really sure what we were dealing with, how it's transmitted, what type of PPE we need, but whatever we needed, we were short of, those types of things. Um, you know, the coach can really help you prioritize what needs to be addressed first. So the coach can focus you, because oftentimes when there is a situation that presents as a crisis, you go into this fight or flight mode and you get totally into this state of amygdala hijack. So your fear, your emotions, your stress, they're all taking over. And so you may lash out at others. You may have a high level of anxiety about what's going on. You might, you could just lose all of your emotional intelligence and composure, because you're stressed through this crisis and you're watching others be stressed. And, it's like a pack mentality. If somebody else is really stressed out about something, you might be able to overlook that. If 2 or 3 other people are really stressed out about something, you're going to have a hard time overlooking that, and you're going to fall into that same mentality. So what your coach can do in this situation is really help you identify those situations and emotions that cause that amygdala reflex, and help you to prepare for that in advance. So when you walk into a situation and you see where others maybe are panicking a little bit, you're able to provide that calm and composure and the leadership that you need to in order to get things back on track and to find solutions.
Yeah, I like what you said about that because, that is a big problem with the way our brains work. And you mentioned it, the fight or flight or even that freeze response, which a lot of people don't think about. So, what important skills can a coach help a leader develop or even refine during a crisis?
So the most important skills are the ability to stop, you know, stop and assess. You want to stop and assess the situation and um, really look at the different possibilities. What's needed in this situation? What's the priority for this situation? What do you have direct control over? What do you have influence over? What can you pull from? So the coach is really good at, like I said, not having the answers, but having the questions to dig deeper into what's needed to really address the crisis. And I think we're going to see this need continue to evolve because what we're seeing right now is basically, we have a lot of healthcare professionals. Honestly, anybody who's working in the healthcare system who are suffering from burnout, they're suffering from vicarious trauma. They're constantly seeing these patients come in and constantly seeing people die, families not being able to be there with them, just a huge emotional load. So what does the leader need to be able to do? A leader needs to be able to relate to those, to everyone who's serving in healthcare right now. And that, I think that's a big, we can all talk about it. I think it's a big disconnect from what we've seen in practice. But we need healthcare leadership who are able to relate to what's going on the front lines, at the bedside, in the operating room, in the intensive care units, in the emergency room. We really need that. And so for leadership, what a coach can do is help you define what are those priorities, how you can connect with those frontline workers and be there for them, support them, help them, and show them that you truly care. Because honestly, when I talk to nurses, when I talk to nurse practitioners, physicians, PAs, everyone's telling me, I really want to know they care. I feel like I'm out here on my own. They're talking about cutting staffing again, and I don't know what to do. And so these are the things that are coming forward. And, that's one of the real crises is what we're seeing in nursing schools are we have graduates who are so excited and they get into their first job and they're gone in 2 years, completely out of the profession. And, I think the same can be said for physicians. And it's scary how many people are leaving our professions because they feel like nobody cares. So,
Yeah, I think you said definitely a lot there. I do have a couple questions from viewers that I'd like to ask also. So first question is, what about after a crisis or at the end of a crisis? Um, can a coach help provide guidance for kind of that post-event analysis and so that we can learn?
absolutely. So, a coach can really help guide that. We do a lot of root cause analysis scenarios. And what your coach can do is help you as a leader really look at what could we have done? What could we and what could we do in the future to better prepare for this and to make sure that our reaction next time is better, because most of the times in these situations, especially in healthcare, there will be a next time.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, being able to learn from all these things, because despite COVID, how bad things have been, it's amazing the things we've learned, just like doing just a Zoom webinar. I remember that first came out, how uncomfortable it was to be on this platform. And now we all seem to be aware of that. Even my father, who's 78 years old, knows how to use Zoom now. So a few good things can come out of it. Um,
Absolutely.
Another question is, and I'm kind of going to summarize this. In coaching from last month's webinar, it was kind of mentioned this concept of a safe space, and kind of being able to have somebody as a sounding board or somebody to vent to. What is your thoughts for that for a coach, especially during something like this during a crisis?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Your coach should be your safe space. They're going to hold you accountable, but they're also there to listen to you, especially in a crisis situation. Your coach is that one person you can go to and you can talk about the issues with this crisis that came up at work, or did you take it home? A lot of times we have stress that we encounter at work and we take that stress home with us. And how can you insulate yourself from taking that stress home? What are things that you can do personally and professionally in order to keep that good balance? But your coach is the safe space. What you and your coach say is confidential. If your coach doesn't provide you with that confidentiality agreement up front, that's an issue. You should question that, because everything that you share with your coach, whether the coach has been hired by your HR department or by you personally, by your manager, whatever, what you say to your coach is confidential. So your coach is a safe space. You can vent your frustrations, and then the coach can help you work through those and plan on how to address some of those situations in the future.
That's a good point. I think with our time, we've got room for one more question. At the beginning, you had mentioned that coaching is not therapy, but it seems like there's so many emotions that come to play in a crisis. Is there an overlap here between coaching and therapy?
I think there's a little bit of an overlap. Um, I know when I went through training as a coach, we were taught that, you should be more hands-off and emotionless, have less emotion involved. But then you look at healthcare providers. So here we are, we all work in healthcare, we have a high degree of empathy and care. And so it's hard to be hands-off. And I think honestly, Heath, if I were going to hire a coach and I were talking to that person and they didn't have any empathy towards my situation or the challenges I were facing, I would have a really hard time connecting with them. So I think to say that coaching is completely emotionless and you need to keep the emotion out of it isn't exactly right. I think we're not therapy, but it can be really healing and empowering to talk to your coach. I hesitate to use the term therapeutic because that sounds like, oh, well, it is, therapy is therapeutic, right? And if it's therapeutic, it's therapy. Well, yeah. But, I think that if you can really connect with your coach and connect with them on that level where you're allowed to show those emotions and your coach understands, that's important. A fine line, but I think we should welcome emotion in coaching.
And I often tell clients that I work with, it may be therapeutic, but like we talked before, therapy, we usually think about things from your past, where this is therapeutic moving forward, hopefully too.
That's
Well,
a
Angela,
great point.
can you give us some take-home points for the viewers today? And I was going to see if you had a slide for that.
Sure. How I muted myself in that, I have no idea. But coaching isn't therapy necessarily, but it can be very healing and forward facing, right? Your coach is a partner in thought with you through a crisis situation and beyond. And it's very individualized when you approach your coach to talk about a crisis. The coach is going to take that very individualized approach. There's no one size fits all. So I like this picture because many times, when you're in a crisis situation, all you see is the darkness. You can't see anything positive out there. And the coach can help you to see all those little points of light that are the positive aspects to the crisis, either in the moment or in the future.
I like that too. Well, Angela, I want to thank you for that. You've given us a lot of really great information on coaching through crisis and how it can benefit us as healthcare professionals and healthcare leaders. And for our viewers, Angela is going to tell you about a free offer right now about how you can get a consult from her and how you can work with her.
I would like to leave you guys with one last quote, and it's from Ben Brooks, and it's, people right now want to have something positive, something that focuses on them and is about the future. And honestly, that's what a coach can do for you. So if you guys would like to have a free consultation with me, my Calendly link is going to be placed in the chat, and please feel free to select an open spot, and I would love to talk with you and connect more with you.
Awesome. And I just put that link right in the chat there for you also. Thanks for offering that. I think that's great. And remember, you can find a link to this recording on our LinkedIn and our YouTube pages, and it's Doctor by Doctor Coaching Group. Also, you can follow us on LinkedIn each week for summaries, polls, and articles on more topics. And finally, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn page and ask us questions, and also help us plan for future webinars. If there's a topic that you're interested in, please let us know, and we'd be happy to talk with that and share our information on that. We've got a great stable of healthcare professionals and doctors that we use for this. And as a reminder, our next webinar will be on Wednesday, September the 22nd at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to flip the table, and I'm going to be interviewed on the topic of coaching through career transition. And I just want to say thank you again. I'm Dr. Heath Jolliff, and from everyone at Doctor by Doctor Coaching Group, we want to thank you for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedule, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Stay well and thrive.